Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat, Sleep, Boxing, Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel in partnership with sharpbetting.co.uk, your home of betting tips and analysis, not just on boxing but other sports too. So please do check them out and look in the description below, and we'll take you straight to their website. But we are here, Elliot, Greg, you and I, once again. It's that time of the week. It is preview time, and we're previewing a big heavyweight fight from the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester, Saturday the 5th of April. The Juggernaut is back in action as he faces Filip Hrgovic, as it said, on Saturday, the 5th of April. It was meant to be Dylan White in the opposite corner of Joe Joyce, but it is Hrgovic having stepped in to replace the body snatcher. Both coming in this fight off a loss. Kind of intrigued to see your take on this fight, and, for our predictions at the end of the video. So please do hang around till the end of the video where Elliot and I will be giving our predictions on this fight. But we will talk about a couple of other topics first, and one of which, I suppose, has maybe been a question with Joe Joyce for a couple of fights now. And I want to ask you, Elliot, do you believe that if Joe Joyce loses here, it has to be retirement for him?
First of all, thank you very much for that eloquent introduction. Obviously, we like to get stuck straight into it, don't we? I think for me, the answer is, I mean, it feels harsh to say that someone should retire at any level, but I actually do feel like Joe Joyce probably should retire if he loses here. And the reason I say that really is because the sort of style that Joe Joyce has, obviously, sort of marketed for a long time on having a sort of impregnable chin and just taking a lot of punishment. But I think he has taken quite a lot of punishment. And you look at those, I look at those Zhang fights, for example, primarily, going bloody hell, big digs in those fights. I look at the fact that he's lost to Chisora, an aging Derek Chisora, and I think once that sort of happened to you, I don't see really the capacity for you to sort of ascend to the top of the sort of heavyweight tree or even get a world title shot. And Joyce is 38, 39 now. Chances of it happening for him, for me, are very slim. So I think if he loses to Hrgovic, who's a fighter, I don't know if you even rate that highly in myself either. I think he's kind of all right. He's kind of like top sort of 15 fighter for me. Doable kind of opposition, but I don't think he's necessarily going to sort of spearhead you into a title fight either. If he loses this, you're sort of going, there is no road for me really. And with the style that he has, yeah, right, you could sort of potter around on sort of Queensberry shows or whatever, and maybe sort of fight kind of fringe level guys. But with Joyce's style, would I want that for him? Probably not. So yeah, for me, if he does lose this fight, I think he's retirement. How about yourself?
Yeah, mate, totally agree. I don't know whether I'm being too hard, but I would have liked to see Joe Joyce hang the gloves up already. To be perfectly honest, I think I didn't expect that first Zhang one. That first Zhang one, I did make Joyce the favorite going into that. He was, as you said, it kind of this impregnable chin, unbreakable, so to speak, granite jaw. It was broken that night, and since then he's been stopped brutally in a rematch with Zhang. Took an age to get rid of Cash Ali, who is a very limited fighter, and then obviously got beaten by, as you said, Derek Chisora in the latter stages of his career as well. Was on the deck in that fight as well. I mean, is it too harsh for me to say that I think Jojo should have hung them up already? I don't know, but if he loses here, and I feel like there's quite a high chance that he might, but we'll come under our predictions at the end. Yeah, for me, I don't want to see Joe Joyce in a professional boxing ring again, particularly if he was stopped at 39. I mean, some people have kind of seen some interviews and stuff with Joyce of late. One that springs to mind, the Dubois Joshua Wembley one. And yeah, I just don't think that he needs to be taking much more punishment in my eyes. So yeah, I would like to see him hang up the gloves. And you know what? He's had a good career. He was a really good amateur. He gave it a good go at heavyweight. Dubois, yeah, he gave it a good go. No harm in falling short at world level for me. But yeah, I'd like to see him hang up the gloves. Filip Hrgovic, you touched on there, Elliot, that you think maybe he is of a certain level as well, and I do agree with you. But what level is that? Because I want to ask you, do you believe that the Croatian fighter here would ever go on to become world heavyweight champion?
Paul, I have to say, not for me. Not for me, to be perfectly honest with you. I think, look, I mean, obviously, last time out, obviously losing to Daniel Dubois is not necessarily a criminal. Obviously, Daniel Dubois is, I think, a very good fighter, very fast hands, a lot of power. So for me, that's not where the issue sort of lies. Obviously, he has that victory over Zhang, which a lot of people thought Zhang won that fight, myself included. But he has that, which has aged, kind of quite well to be in that sort of fight, that duration. But I look at the sort of opposition that he's faced, like likes of Demori, McKean. You look at that, and you go, really, probably burgling the ranking that he's currently got, to be perfectly honest with you. I look at the sort of names that are around him, I think they'd probably beat him. I think he's quite mechanical. I think he's obviously tough and durable, but I don't think he's got the kind of boxing ability to actually win a world title, frankly. I think, don't get me wrong, I think, if the belt sort of fracture, if you usually retires, I can see a world where he fights for one, potentially. But I just don't think, unless he kind of gets a very, very favourable draw, I back any of those sort of guys that are sort of, the likes of, sort of Caballero, Parker, if they're still around, even like of Wardley and them coming through, Bacoli, if he's actually bothers to sort of train and, and turn up in the gym to sort of beat him quite convincingly. So for me, I don't see him winning one, but I don't rule out the fact that he might one day contest for one.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there, mate. It kind of depends. In all likelihood, he probably will fight for a vacant version of it, maybe in the future if he gets himself into a mandatory position, whatever. Yeah, I could see him. But me sitting here right now, I totally concur, Elliot. I don't really rate Filip Hrgovic that highly. I'm not going to go on a rant. I don't want this to turn into Filip Hrgovic hating video because it's certainly not. But I really just do not rate him. I think his conditioning is a lot that leaves a lot to be desired. Like after he battered Daniel Dubois for what 3-4 rounds, and then after that looked absolutely spent. And I don't like to use this word, but I think I'm not going to use the word, but you'll know what I mean when I say. I think when the going gets tough, Filip Hrgovic doesn't really want to know, in my opinion. And the going is going to get tough if you are to fight in world heavyweight title fights. Big puncher. Probably can win. Could he win a fight? You've seen worse fighters win. Charles Martin was world heavyweight champion. Would Hrgovic beat Charles Martin? Yes. So I suppose it depends, but I agree with you, mate. With the current landscape of heavyweights, I can't see a world in which the Croatian becomes world heavyweight champion. And just before we round off, Elliot, bringing it right back to the Co-op Live Arena on Saturday night in the main event, Joyce, can he roll back the years, get back on the knockout train, or is this a victory, perhaps even a stoppage victory, Filip Hrgovic? How do you see it going?
No, I'm actually struggling with this one a little bit because I think, like you said, there's the sense of Filip Hrgovic not necessarily wanting it if it gets tough, and I think with Joyce, if he's kind of durable, it could get quite tough. I think if puts the pressure on, kind of keeps throwing that kind of, I don't want to say that the sort of cliche, but keeps throwing that ramrod jab into his face. Then maybe that could be proved difficult. But I to be honest with you, I can't kind of get past the recent sort of Joyce that we've seen, and I feel like the Joyce, like lost his aura. I'd be very, very surprised if Hrgovic didn't have too much for that version of Joyce. Joyce obviously gets hit a lot. Like you said, Hrgovic has got power. He's proven that as well. So I can actually see a Hrgovic victory. And to be honest with you, I can see a sort of second half of the fight stoppage for Hrgovic. I really can. And I think it's going to be one of those ones which I think can be quite tough to watch initially if Joyce does start taking shots as well. So yeah, for me, it's Hrgovic KO.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Hrgovic KO, I slightly disagree on the timings. I think that Hrgovic that fought Dubois, he looked brilliant for a few rounds, was landing that 1-2 at will on Dubois. Dubois maybe doesn't move his head overly much, but he moves it more than Joyce does. Joyce is going to be a sitting duck for me. And as you said, can he take all those shots? No, I don't know. I think we've seen chinks in the armor. That chin has it weakened ever so quite a lot since the Zhang knockouts. I think it has. I'm going to say I'd be very, very surprised if this even goes 6 rounds. I think Filip Hrgovic will run through Joyce, unfortunately. Again, I said I don't really rate Filip Hrgovic that highly, but I think Joyce is close to done, as we've seen, to be honest, and his chin has completely gone. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see Joyce do it, but I just can't see it, to be honest with you. I think Filip Hrgovic could kind of run through Joyce here and get a fairly early stoppage. So yeah, we will see. Guys, let us know in the comments your thoughts on this fight and how you see this one playing out. Answering those questions. Should Joyce retire? If he loses, could Hrgovic become world heavyweight champion? And let us know how you actually see this one playing out as well. As always, like the video if you're not. And also subscribe to the channel, please, if you're not doing so already. All of your boxing needs under one roof, including our previews, final prediction videos, betting tip shows, reactions, reviews, all of the above. Anything that you can think of boxing related, we have got you covered. So please do check out the channel. Elliot, thanks very much for joining me, mate. I'll speak to you again soon.